All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today for our DPA product overview webinar hosted by TC Furlong Inc. Before we dive right in, I just want to do some brief introductions, go over some quick housekeeping items. First off, my name's Aaron Posega. I'm a member of TC Furlong Inc.'s sales and marketing team. If you're not familiar with TC Furlong Inc., if you found the webinar somewhere on social media, or maybe you're watching this after the fact and you're not really familiar with us or what we do, I want to give you just a brief introduction to our company. TC Furlong Inc. is a live sound company. We're based in the Chicago area, but we have clients all across the country. We kind of handle all aspects of live sound. We have four broad departments or umbrellas, I sort of like to call them, that most of our business fits under. And that includes equipment rentals, equipment sales, live event production, and a range of services, including loudspeaker system design, system tuning, RF coordination, repairs, and a whole lot more. So that's a little bit about us. I'd encourage you to check out our website, tcfurlong.com, learn a little bit more about what we do, check out our blog, which has some great educational content. You can find us on social media as well. We're on all the usual suspects, so just go to your platform of choice, type in TC Furlong Inc., and you'll be able to find us. So we're here today to talk about DPA, and we have some great guests joining us today. We have Alan Johnson joining us from DPA. Alan is DPA's sales manager for our region. He's also DPA's House of Worship director. So thanks for joining us, Alan. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, Aaron. Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. We've also got Paul Andrews here with us today. Paul is DPA's Global Support and Business Development Manager. How's it going, Paul?
Aaron, doing great. Thanks for having us on.
Of course. And thanks for giving us your time today, guys. Just a couple more quick housekeeping items before we get going. We are recording this webinar today, so this will be posted on our YouTube channel in the coming days. Everyone who's here joining us live, you will get an email when that video goes live. So if you need to come back and review anything you see here today, if you miss anything, or if you know someone who's not joining us here who could benefit from this content, we would absolutely encourage you to check that out when it goes live and share that with everyone you know. Finally, we do want this webinar to be as much of a two-way conversation as possible. So that means I really want to encourage you to submit your questions for us. You can use the Q&A function in your Zoom window. Please do that rather than typing your questions into the chat. It's just a little bit easier for us to keep track of questions in the Q&A. We'll try to keep open a couple minutes at the end of the presentation, but we do want to address your questions as we go too, because the more questions you ask, the more you steer the conversation in the way that's most beneficial for you, the better it'll be. So I think that's all I have for right now. So Alan, Paul, I'm going to go ahead and give you guys the wheel, and we'll keep an eye out for those questions as they come.
Fantastic.
Sounds good.
Aaron, thank you so much. Alan, you want to jump in to say anything before we get started?
I'm just really excited to be here. I always love talking with you and talking more about what we do, and especially with our customers. You know, I think that for many people, they know the name, they know DPA, but they don't quite know everything that we've got going for us and the solutions that we can bring. And I love bringing you on board to all of these things because you are the guru. You know what's going on, and you're gonna impart some wisdom.
No way, man. This is your world. We're just renting space, Alan. No, thank you so much. That's awesome. So today, yes, we are going to discuss 4 different types of products that I thought would be most applicable to the TC Furlong folks and the particular audience. We're gonna talk about some instrument microphones. We're going to talk about headsets. We'll talk about some handheld microphones, and we'll go over some lavalier types as well. First and foremost, for those of you who are not necessarily familiar with DPA, just a little bit about us. We are a Danish company. DPA stands for Danish Pro Audio. What this means to you is that we are a small company out of Denmark, just north of Copenhagen, and we hand build all of our products, which is a really neat thing. We pay a lot of attention to the quality of the product being hand built, and that leans into our lineage. Lineage, what is that? Well, where did we come from? We came from a long line of testing and measurement microphones. You may have heard of another company, another Danish company by the name of B&K or Brüel and Kjær. They have a long-standing reputation of being some of the highest quality testing and measurement microphones on the planet today. Our philosophy as we have branched away or stepped into the musical realm and into the audio as we know it, a little bit away from the testing and measurement side of things, have kept that philosophy of we want to try and capture the source as absolutely accurately as we possibly can. And to do that, we have to maintain a really linear frequency response. So just keep that in mind as we go over these products, that we're designing these products to, like I said, capture that source as accurately as we can so that ultimately it's going to make your job that much easier. All right, let's jump in. I'm going to share my screen a little bit. We're going to take a look at some slides, and I'll just kind of walk you through some of these things. Hopefully everybody can see that. I'll put it into presentation mode here. Everybody see that okay? I hope so. Nod your head. Aaron, yes, somebody? Great. Okay. So the DPA family, as you can see here, we build several different form factors of microphones. And as I mentioned before, we're just going to cover some of those. First off, just to kind of toot our own horn a little bit, these are some of the folks that have been using our microphones. You can see here that not only in different musical genres, but across the board, you can see this in broadcast and theater, the corporate environment, film. So just to kind of give you an idea of where our microphones are used. This is a picture of the factory in Denmark. This is just one of the several rooms that we have where all of our wonderful factory workers are, as you can see, just assembling things by hand. It's a very, very clean, sterile environment. Some of the rooms actually are considered to be clean rooms just because of the small components that we're working with. We can't allow any dust or any kind of intrusion into those rooms. So it's a pretty neat place to tour if you ever have the opportunity. First up, all right, let's talk about the 4099 series. This is what a lot of people refer to as our instrument microphones. I'm gonna stop the share here so we can jump back in. So the instrument microphones, these guys, the 4099s. What is this? Well, this is basically a miniature shotgun microphone. It comes with an adjustable gooseneck like this that you can position into different places and really put it into the place that you're looking for. Now, the reason that we did that is because we want you to be able to mount this microphone specifically to different instruments. And I'll get into that in just a moment. I call this a miniature shotgun, and you can see that if you have any familiarity with the film world, it kind of looks like a shotgun on the end of a boom. Well, that's really where we took the idea from. It is in a supercardioid pattern. We have a really nice shock mount or decoupling system that works right here. And again, you can adjust everything. Now, the way this comes together, and you may not or may be familiar with this end connection. This is called a microdot connection right here. And I'll dive into this a little bit more in a moment. I'll also talk about this little yellow stripe at the end. But first, let's take a look at some of the various adapters that this microphone can attach itself to. I'll show some pictures, but I also want to show the physical adapters themselves. This guy right here, this is what we call our guitar adapter. Now, they all have a similarity in the way that they come together and that they fix to the adapter. So the microphone itself and the adjustable boom is going to slide right into this position right here, like that. Now I've got this locking sleeve that's going to come in, and that's going to lock itself into place. And what that does is it creates a very, very secure connection right there. Now, acoustic guitars come in several different widths, as we all know. That's what this section right here is for. As you can see, I can ratchet this section up. So depending on the width of that guitar, I can connect this to the guitar. And where I typically like to put it is on the upper bow of the guitar itself. I'll position that microphone and then I'll bend that down, the gooseneck down, and I'll position it, say, in front of the 12th fret or say in front of the sound hole or something like that in order to achieve the tonal qualities that I'm looking for in the instrument. So that's just one of our adapters right there. That's the guitar mount. Now, you're looking at this and you're like, well, how does this connect up to everything else, right? This microdot connector here. This connects up to an extension cable right here that has the male end of, or the female end of that connector, and that just threads itself right on there. From here, we've got now about a 3-foot extension that can either be connected to an XLR connector or to one of our various wireless adapters. Now that's a really neat setup because what this ultimately tells you is that you can go wired with it, like I mentioned, to an XLR, or you can connect it up to your wireless belt pack. So depending on the manufacturer that you have and depending on the type of connector that they require, my guess is that we manufacture that. We have 37 different adapters that we currently produce for various reasons, mostly because wireless companies have never determined a standard, so they all like to build their own, which is fun. All that to be said, this will plug right into your belt pack and you're off and running with a completely wireless instrument microphone that mounts directly to the instrument and is always going to stay in the sweet spot. So the neat thing about that is you have freedom of movement to move around stage with your instrument, and you don't feel like you're going to be fixed or tied, whether it be with a cable or to a stationary microphone on a stand. Now you have the opportunity and the freedom to move back and forth and express yourself, or whatever that looks like. Okay, I'm going to show you some pictures of some of the other adapters, and we can dive into those further, but I wanted to at least give you an idea of some of the ways these mount up. Hopefully everyone can see that all right. Okay. Let's see here. Before I go any further, here in this picture, you can see the red and the yellow stripe with these two microphones. One of the really neat things about this is that we build these microphones in 2 different sensitivity levels. As you can see, what we call the loud version being at 142 SPL handling capability, and the yellow stripe being the extreme version, reaching all the way to 152 dB SPL. Okay, so there's that acoustic guitar mount that I was talking about. You see how that connects, and you can connect that to the upper or lower bow or wherever on the guitar you find the best tone, honestly. So that's a really neat function there. Here we are utilizing 2 of our magnet mounts that attach themselves really nice to anything magnetic. We call them the piano mounts, but to be honest with you, they are used in so many other applications beside just piano. I like to call them magnet mounts because you'll find them used on film sets or different places, anywhere there's a metal object that you need to mount a discrete microphone, which is really fun. Okay, piano, let's move on. Here we have a cello. and the ever popular accordion. And this is a neat setup because this actually allows you to capture both sides of the accordion. So stereo recording capabilities or live sound capabilities with the accordion there. Here's one of my favorites, the upright bass. So here we have a very similar adapter to the cello adapter. This one's just a little bit larger to accommodate for the upright. Saxophone, the ever popular horn, fantastic. Trumpet, different types of percussion. So here is one of those opportunities where you can take that piano mount and you can actually use it in a different application. Here we are attaching it to one of the metal pieces on the side of the piece of percussion there. Here's our standard drum mount that works with obviously any type of rim. It has varying degrees of catch points so that depending on the size of the rim or the thickness, we should be able to accommodate. This is our universal mount. This one has a Velcro setting that allows you to attach it to various things such as different pieces of percussion like this, but it also allows you to attach it to cylindrical objects like different pieces of woodwinds or flutes or whatever that looks like. And one of our favorite friends in the industry, Mr. Lars from Metallica. Reason I throw this picture up here is because he is utilizing several of our 4099 microphones. You can see not only on the toms, but he's also utilizing the universal mount to under mic several of the cymbals. So you can see his crash and his ride cymbal there have the microphones that are underneath. So he actually is not utilizing any overheads at that point. So that's kind of a neat feature as well. Alan, anything you want to jump in and add so far? I'm going to go over some more of the adapters, but if you have any fun stories or anything about any of this.
I mean, I think that you kind of started off with the guitar mount for the 4099. Myself as a guitarist, I can just tell you that it is the best thing that I've ever used live with my guitar. And I've even put some researched, this is prior to being a part of this wonderful team that I'm a part of. I researched like what's the best pickup system to put inside my guitar.
Right.
And it still sounded like a pickup system inside my guitar. And the day that I put that 499 on that guitar and plugged it in, I realized that, oh my goodness, this is exactly what my guitar sounds like.
Isn't that
it's
awesome?
not my guitar through a pickup system. And so I won't go back, honestly. And if anybody wants to hear it or see it, I know that the Zach Brown band, they just did their campfire session, and you'll see Zach using one of those little puppies on his guitar, and you'll just hear how good that sounds.
Right, exactly. Yeah, great example there. Some of the other really fun adapters that I like to use, take for instance, this smaller one right here. Now this looks very similar to the guitar adapter, and that's because it is. If I were to compare the two, you can see that this one is just quite a bit shorter, but it's the same form factor. Why is that? Well, we designed this one to originally work with violin and viola. So it has the same capability in terms of being able to ratchet down like this, depending on the thickness of the instrument right here. But the neat thing about this too is I like to use it on kick drums. And what I like to do specifically there is there's the outside ring that wraps itself around the kick drum. And I like to take the 4099 and mount that so that once it's in place and I lock in the sleeve, now I'm coming to that outside rim and I can bend that microphone right around there. And let's say the port of it is sitting right here. Now I have an outside kick drum mic that is completely stand free. So the neat thing about that is, you've probably been in situations, or at least a lot of you have, where you're miking up a drum kit and there's stands everywhere and you're trying to squeeze things in different places. Well, this is just one of those opportunities to get rid of one of those stands where you can literally use the violin and viola mount and connect that to the outside ring of the kick drum right there and position that wherever you want to. That's a really neat, fun one right there. The what I like to call the allocator clip right here. This one was originally designed to work with, say, music stands when you didn't want to necessarily put the microphone or connect the microphone to an instrument, say in an orchestral situation where there may be people that are interchanging, or there's a lot of movement potential, or the individual just doesn't necessarily want the microphone attached to the instrument. This is a great solution for that because it'll attach itself to the music stand right in front of them. The neat thing about this too, though, is that it'll connect itself to many, many different things besides music stands. It has a really nice tight grip, but yet won't damage anything that it's connected to. The other neat thing about this particular mount is that you can see here where right now that microphone is mounted to head off to the side like this, okay? The neat thing about this is you can rotate that and slide that piece back in. Now I can take that and I can mount that vertically. You can see, so it's got a lot of flexibility, and we've got other mounts that have the same option to it. So when you start to think about this, and I make this joke all the time, as we go through and you see all these different parts and pieces, the joke is that, well, Legos are made in Denmark, and our microphones are also made in Denmark. So there is somehow a correlation there. I'll let you guys decide how all that comes together.
The same factory.
Say that again, Alan?
It's the same factory.
It's the same factory, right? No, not really, but they could be, because same mindset anyways. Yeah, pretty neat stuff. Alan, anything else you want to throw in regards to the 4099 series?
No, not necessarily that. There was a question that was popped up, and
Okay.
I'm sure we'll touch it in several points. But you talked about the 499 and how it's a microdot
Yes.
connection.
Yes.
And I've seen questions about the microdot, lots of places online and different Facebook groups. And usually it's probably more so a question regarding like the headsets or the lavaliers, which I know you haven't gotten into yet. But since you've kind of brought up the microdots, can you touch quickly on the reliability and the robustness and the security of the microdots versus getting something hardwired? Because we do offer both.
Absolutely. Yes, we do. So let's dig into that a little bit more. I'm going to show you this extension cable right here. It has microdot connectors on both ends, which is going to be very similar to as we saw either on the 4099s, or when we jump into the labs and the headsets, we'll have the same connector. One thing that I want to take note of right off the bat is that all of the cabling that we do, doesn't matter whether it's a lav, a headset, or extension cables like this, they are all Kevlar reinforced. So the tensile strength on these guys and pinch point strengths are really, really strong. So these are designed for live use. They are designed for the road, for touring, and have handled many, many different types of abuse. In terms of the reliability of the connectors themselves, we have continually increased the strain relief potential in these. So the back and forth movement like this is fantastic. Now, in terms of the connection itself, I'm going to try and show this to you. Hopefully you can see this, but on the inside of both of these connectors, you're going to see a red ring. Okay, now that is a special Loctite type of a material. So when you take that and you take one of our wireless adapters, you see there's that little red ring that's set in there again, right? When these two make contact with each other and it's threaded together, you can actually feel a lock that takes place. Now, that's going to completely prevent this from backing off on its own. You physically have to put forth the effort to twist that off and to disconnect it. So in my mind, the reliability and the stability within the microdot connection itself is fantastic. Um, it is one of the most stable connections, I believe, in the signal chain and in the way it all comes together. Alan, hopefully that helps answer that question a little bit better.
And if you don't mind, guys, I'll just jump in here to say that if anyone's looking for a real world example, TC Furlong, we have something in the realm of 300 DPA mics in our rental inventory right now. They get sent all over the country. We use them on our own jobs. And the vast majority of those, if not all of them, have the microdot adapter rather than being hardwired to any particular connector. And, we found them rock solid and reliable. And that's why we have 300 plus of them. And, just another shameless plug to say that we have all of these adapters, all of these mounts that we're discussing here today in our rental inventory as well.
That's very cool. Just to touch a little bit on the hardwired option, we do absolutely offer that. And so if you are, say, in a particular production, or you're working in the same house of worship, and you've already got an established wireless system that you don't plan on changing out or moving at any different time, we'll absolutely hardwire things for you, and you can have that stability. The only thing that it does is it kind of limits you to that one in particular adapter. But just know that we do offer that. You bet. Cool. Alan, how are we doing, buddy?
I think we're doing good. I think what I always tell people is this, like you said, Paul, like when you get something hardwired, you're stuck with that connection. And I mean, we're talking about small pieces. And so I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say that hardwiring something doesn't provide a little bit of security, because it does remove one connection point. But rarely have I ever noticed that connection point being what might fail. And you do lose that ability to kind of move around. So imagine you're at a church, and pastor goes from the main sanctuary, which has maybe has newer upgraded wireless systems. You have a certain connector for that. And then maybe the next week he has to go and do a different, talk to a different group of people, maybe in like the older gym that had maybe the wireless systems have been passed down, different connecting point. All you do is switch that connector or the adapter. And then you can now use that mic on both systems. And that's the beauty of that. But absolutely, if you're in a situation when we like 100%, have the same connections, go ahead and get it hardwired. There's no reason not to. And to be honest, if you ever switch systems, we can clip that and reconnect for you. So it's not like you're going to be married to it forever.
Right. Great point. If there aren't any further questions, let's move on to handhelds. Cool. All right. So DPA, we offer two different handheld microphones. The first one that I want to talk about is what we call the de facto right here. This microphone is part of what I would consider to be part of what we call our 4000 series microphones, which are modular. And I'll explain that. So as I unthread and take this apart a little bit for you, what I'm doing is I'm exposing the actual capsule itself. Okay. This capsule then can be interchanged with different capsules. Okay, so there's that modularity aspect. This is in our de facto microphone that I'm holding right now in front of me. There's a lot of really neat features other than the modularity aspect of this microphone. The first one is this black ring that you see down here. This black ring is actually a fluoride membrane that, if you can see, I'm actually pushing my fingernail into that a little bit. And what it does is it physically decouples the capsule from the handle itself. So what that does is really minimizes the potential transfer or vibrational content that may be happening, say if you're up on stage and for whatever reason, if you're clapping or whatever that looks like, it decouples this handle from the capsule itself. These microphones have 160 dB SPL handling capability, so they can take pretty much everything that you want to throw at it. And yes, you can actually put this on your snare drum and feel very comfortable, and you're going to get a fantastic sound. Not that that's what its intended use is for, at least as far as the shape, but you can absolutely do that. Two different capsules that we like to put typically with this particular microphone. They are part of what we call like I said before, the 4000 series, 4018 VL and 4018 V. Okay, I'll see if I can let you focus in on that right there. You can see the 4018 VL right there on there. This is in a supercardioid pattern, which I'll talk about a little bit more. Now, the difference between the 4018V and the 4018VL is that we have tailored the 4018V to be a little bit more appropriate for people who need a little bit extra help when it comes to the intelligibility or the diction, or just to give them a little bit more top end. So what we're doing is we're boosting the frequencies, starting at about 5.5K, just a nice gentle 3D boost out to about 12 and then back again. And what that ultimately does for you is it gives you a little bit more top end and a little bit more presence if that vocalist or whoever happens to be speaking into it is requiring that. The VL capsule is, we are keeping that very linear across the board. So whatever that individual happens to sound like, that's going to be exactly what you're getting out of this microphone. I want to show you a little bit more about this guy right here. This is a 3-part filtration system. As I pull this apart, you'll see this inner mesh grill that I'm taking out right here. Okay, all of this is designed not only to help with the proximity effect, but it's also going to help with the plosives, and it continually helps to establish the supercardioid pattern. Okay, so you've got this inner mesh grill. On the inside of the grill here, you have an acoustically accurate pop filter. I know it's dark in there, but you can see I'm squeezing it on the inside. And then on the outside here, you have the outer mesh, which is a powder coated grill. Okay, so that all 3 of these components, when they come together, really do a nice job of providing those attributes that I just mentioned. Another really neat thing about this microphone that a lot of people don't really understand is when I set this up here, and as if I'm threading it on, look at how far this capsule is sitting up into the bird cage, if you want to call it that right there. So when I thread this on, you can see how that capsule is now sitting up into this area. Now, why is that important? Well, a lot of people who perform or are going to be using a handheld microphone don't necessarily have the training, I should say, to hold the microphone the way it's supposed to be held. A lot of people are going to have a tendency to grip it up here, or like this, or like this. All of these different things are going to potentially affect the way the capsule is going to capture the sound and will affect the overall tonality. We push that capsule far forward into this so people have opportunity to grab this microphone in various fashions like this, and to the greater extent isn't going to affect the sound adversely. Obviously, when you get into extremes like this, it's pretty hard to get around that. But we did put that option in so that people have a lot of flexibility in how they ultimately want to hold this microphone. So this is the de facto, completely modular, as I mentioned. Different capsule types you can interchange with that. The second handheld microphone that I want to introduce you to is what we call the 2028. Okay, this is part of the 2000 series. Okay, as opposed to the de facto, which I consider to be part of the 4000 series. So this is the little brother to the de facto. A little bit smaller form factor. You can see here in terms of the sizing. So depending on your hand size and what feels most comfortable to you, the 2028 may be the right fit. Neat thing about this microphone is it employs very much of the same filtration techniques, a little bit different form function design in the fact that we are mounting the screen that can thread on and off, as you can see here, to expose the capsule. You still have the acoustically accurate foam on the inside and the grill on the outside like this. Now, this is a non-modular version, still in a supercardioid pattern, okay? Still handling 160 dB SPL. So all of those great attributes are the same, but we wanted to save some costs and be able to offer this at a lower price point. So we took away the modularity. A lot of folks may not find it necessary that you have the interchangeable capsules. And so this is a fantastic solution in that regard. We offer both of these microphones in an XLR wired version as well as wireless. So depending on the type of wireless system that you may have, whether it be Shure, Electrosonics, whomever, let us know and we will be able to provide you with the wireless version of this microphone itself. If you were to take, and it's easily illustrated with the de facto, this top portion right here and the grill is basically what you would receive if, say, I wanted to put this onto a Shure wireless body. And that adapter then would be appropriate for that Shure wireless body or whoever the manufacturer happens to be. So just to kind of clarify that. Any questions about the handheld wireless, or Alan, do you want to contribute anything there?
Yeah, one question popped up about the ruggedness of the de facto
Yeah.
or 2028, and that's been something I've heard before too.
Cool.
Touch real quick on just how rugged they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Case in point, I have a good friend of mine. His name is Mitch Malloy, and he is the lead singer for Great White. He has been singing into the de facto for 2 or 3 years now. And the first year that he took this out on tour, after about, I would say his 7th or 8th show, he sends me pictures of this grill completely demolished, just banged in. And it's like, how many times did you need to drop this? Because he's quite active on stage. He's swinging his stand around, and inevitably, I think the mic must go flying. I have no idea what's happening with that. But he sends these pictures. He's like, I can't believe it. This thing sounds fantastic. It's not broken, but how do I fix the dents in the cage itself? And so I gave him some ideas, and he was able to bend that back out and reshape it. These are super, super robust. Alan, you may remember when the 2028 first came out, some of the factory testing that they did with this microphone is they set it up on a stand and concrete floor surface, and they basically from basically a standing vocal height, 4.5, 5 feet high, they just had this thing fall over, landing again and again and again on this concrete floor. And I don't remember the exact number, but it was up into the 80s that they finally, this piece was completely, caved in. And after every single drop, they would test the audio yet again, and it worked, and it worked, and it never stopped working. So in terms of being robust, I think they're fantastic. Hopefully that helps out in answering that question.
It does. And I know we only have about 20 more minutes left on scheduled time. So why don't you keep on moving?
Yeah, you bet. Very cool. Okay. I am going to jump ahead, and we're going to talk about headsets. Let's move on to that. Okay, headsets. Three different generations of headsets DPA has developed over the years, and all three generations are continually in production. I'm going to start off with our newest one, and I'll just briefly touch on that. This is what we call our 6066. This is a dual ear configuration. This is an Omni microphone. And like I said, this is our third generation. So I feel like we've taken the best of the best from generation 1 and 2, and we've employed it into this third one. This is a really neat setup in the fact that you have really, this is a one size fits all microphone and headset. You have a lot of flexibility. Taking a look at this boom section right here, we've incorporated that interlocking sleeve like I showed you on the 4099, just in a miniature version. What that does is it basically allows for not only pivot points like this, so you can adjust the pitch, but it also allows you to adjust the boom length. You can see I'm sliding that back and forth like this. So depending on not only the curvature and the shape of the individual's jawline and cheek right here, but the length between their ear and where you want to put the microphone into the sweet spot, you have total flexibility, not only back and forth, but up and down with this microphone, that then once that locking sleeve is put back into place, it's secure and it'll stay in that position for you. That's really, really important. The other really neat thing about this is it's very simple to disconnect this end, take the cable, flip it around, and reconnect it on this side. So you can transfer this from being a right-sided to a left-sided headset in about 20 seconds. It's really quick and easy to do that as well. Why did we do all of this and give you these features? Because we looked at all the potential failure points in these microphones over the years. These headsets are a delicate microphone system, and they need to be, because people are wearing them, so they not only need to be super comfortable, but they also basically need to be invisible or as unobtrusive as possible. All that being said, we looked at those failure points and we're like, how can we maintain maximum adjustability within these, but then also keep them comfortable and rugged at the same time? So we've really incorporated some neat aspects into this. This capsule is 3.4 millimeters. You can see that it's really quite small. Like I said before, it is in an Omni configuration. You have complete cable management on the back side that allows you to actually slide this around, so that depending on whether you want the cable to drop down the center or say the side, if you're having a conversation, you're on film and you want that to drop down the side, not down the back like that, you have all those capabilities as well. Completely adjustable in terms of the sizing, so you can get really large for people with big heads, or you can get really small as well. The next generation, or generation 2, that I want to talk about is what we call our flex design. That's this guy right here. This is our single ear. This is also in an Omni configuration. This microphone employs one of our 5 millimeter capsules. So if you were to compare the two, you can see here the difference in size, the 3 millimeter as opposed to the 5 millimeter right there. Okay. So this is a little bit larger, completely different setup when it comes to the ergonomics and how this mounts. This microphone, we actually got together with ear doctors and had us, and they helped us design the system for maximum security and comfort. Neat thing about this microphone is it's completely modular in the sense that you have the capability to not only make the adjustments back and forth like this, so that I can extend that boom length, so I can pull that right into the sweet spot where I need it to go, back and forth. But we also have this pivot point that's happening right here, which allows you to physically rotate that boom around. So this single ear microphone can be mounted on the right side and as quickly now it's ready for the left. So no more do you have to think about bending the boom back and forth like a lot of other manufacturers are requiring you to do that. That's just another potential failure point that's going to happen over time. We wanted that pivot point to sit right there so that you're simply rotating it back and forth. All of this flexibility, though, says that yes, you can take it apart, and that's the modularity aspect of it. So what I've just done is I've broken this into 3 different parts. You've got the cable, you've got the boom, and you've got the earpiece. And what this means to you is now you have the capability to interchange these parts or replace them if something does happen to fail. So I can interchange, I can change the color out or replace the cabling, right? I can take the boom and I can replace it, and I can go from, say, an omni to a directional microphone. I can take the earpiece and I can interchange its color out, or I can go from, say, a single ear to a dual ear configuration and back again. So literally the possibilities are almost endless when it comes to the capability of the flex design in these microphones themselves. We do offer it in a broadcast version with in-ear monitoring capabilities as well. Alan, anything you
Yes,
want
sir.
to add?
Not add, but you brought something up,
Yes,
and
sir.
it might cause you to change course.
Let's do it.
You've just shown us some fantastic products. They all have this beautiful Scandinavian modular design. We know they look good, but one thing you just said you could switch that boom on that headset for an omni, or go to a directional.
Yes.
Those are totally different things. Why? What would make one choose one over the other?
Great question. Great question. So let's dive into a little bit of application. Okay. So when you're speaking headsets, why do we build omni versus directional headsets? Well, it all, in my mind, has to do with the environment that you happen to be in. If the environment that you're in is challenging in the sense that the acoustics or the overall sound of the room or the positioning of the talent or the person who's wearing the microphone is in proximity to, say, the speaker system that happens to be in place, whether that's a permanent install or whether it's something that's set up, doesn't matter. It has to do with those different types of constraints that you're going to find yourself working in, and that can change oftentimes unless you're in the same venue with the same system all the time. Even then, all of those things need to be considered when you're thinking about, do I go omni or do I go directional? As a rule of thumb, I will typically always try someone with an omni microphone first, and only then, if we continue to have problems, say with potential feedback because of positioning, where the PA system or the type of PA system that they're using isn't properly placed, or it isn't properly tuned, or the acoustics in the room are causing those issues, only then will I step into something that's a directional. Now, keeping all of that in mind, because of the fact that the microphone is super close to the sound source, right? That's going to give you a great advantage in all things capturing audio from the beginning, okay? Just because of the fact that you're only working with a small distance like this. Now, because it's in such close proximity, that gives you the capability, honestly, to get away with a lot more than as if you were, say, using a lav microphone, which we also offer in omni and directional, which we can talk about in a minute. But in terms of what do we look for and when do we choose an omni versus a directional, it all has to do with the environment that you happen to be in. If you need a directional microphone that's going to basically null out the greater extent of the environment that you're in because of some of those potential issues, then that's going to be the right answer for you. Which, by the way, I should talk about just briefly, omni versus directional with our microphones. Now, the neat thing about that is whether it be our omni or our directional microphones, these are side address microphones. What that means to you is that the factory curve of this boom right here is going to be facing the sound source itself, okay? Even when I rotate this around so that it is now appropriate for someone that wants to put it on the left side, what I've done is this whole system has rotated so that side address omni microphone is still facing the sound source. And that's the exact same thing with our directional microphones too. A lot of other manufacturers don't do that. They have a front address microphone, which can cause a lot of problems, whether it be omni or directional, because of the simple fact that, well, it's not facing the sound source. And so say if you're in a situation, whether it be house of worship or corporate, and you've got a podium or something in front of you that's reflective, and you have a microphone that's front facing, well, now you have the potential of your voice hitting that podium and bouncing back. So now it's going to be getting what's called a first reflection. And it's that type of a thing that can eventually cause issues, right? So just another aspect in why our microphones are a little bit different, and how we really pay attention to those small details that allow you ultimately to do your jobs better. Hopefully that was not too exhaustive in an answer, but Alan, what do you think? Did
I
that
think
cover
that's
it pretty
great.
well?
It did. So we have 10 minutes left.
Well, we
What
are
do you
just needing to move on, aren't we?
what do you want to leave us with?
You wanna go over the labs a little bit?
You know what? I'd say let's skip the labs.
Okay.
Only reason being is that application wise, yes, there are some differences as why you would choose a lab over a headset, but the technology, it's the same capsules.
Exactly.
So I'm
Yes.
wondering if we talk about some of the things that make, besides the look and feel, what makes our microphone stand out, such as some of the transient response, the linearity, the off-axis coloration, or not thereof, kind of thing.
You
Can you
got it.
hit on those for me?
You bet. Yep. So let's talk about some off-axis frequency response. This is a really big one. I'm going to show you two different slides here. Let me click over to sharing the screen. So here we are looking at a frequency response chart of one of our microphones. This is a directional microphone. And what we're looking at here is this top section. The 0, or the on axis, is the top line, okay? So this is the frequency response you can see all the way from 20 hertz all the way up to 40 kilohertz. And then on the vertical axis, you can see the level being at 0 dB where the test was taken. And then you can see all of the subsequent lines being off axis. So you can see the 30, the 60, and the 90, and the 180 degrees off axis. This is really important when you take a look at these lines, because you want these lines to be parallel to each other, or as parallel as they possibly can be. So you can see even with our 30, 60, and 90 degrees off axis, how parallel these lines are. Because when you have accurate off axis frequency response, now you're only experiencing a level of attenuation. You can see over on the left side where it talks about 0 all the way to -10 and then eventually down to -30, how you're only dropping level even when you're 30, 60, and 90 degrees off axis. But the frequency response remains virtually the same. That is a good indicator of a very high quality directional microphone itself. As opposed to, if we take a look at this particular slide, now we are looking at a frequency response chart that is potentially going to have some problems, specifically in these areas here. When you start seeing these on and off axis lines starting to cross over each other, this is where you're going to experience problems at front of house or as an engineer, wherever you are, because this is not only going to introduce different phase anomalies, comb filtering, potential omni effects within these specific frequency ranges. So this is what, and as it says at the top, this is what you don't want to see in regards to off-axis frequency response. I'm going to go ahead and end the share there. So both on and off-axis frequency response. It's one thing to be able to say, yes, on axis, our microphones are super accurate. But what happens, right? What happens when I'm 30, 60, 90, 180 degrees off axis with this microphone? That's what really determines the quality of the microphone and how well it's going to translate, as well as play with other microphones that happen to be on stage with you. So the idea of not only off axis coming from the source like this, but also off axis coming from secondary sound sources. So in this example with the handheld, if I'm singing into it and I've got the drummer behind me, I have potential cymbal splash and all types of other things that are going to take place that are going to be coming into this microphone. It's inevitable, right? Wouldn't you rather have that off axis coming in super accurately just at an attenuated level, rather than introducing all of those different types of anomalies that you're going to get when you don't have a stable off-axis frequency response? Hopefully that helps out, and hopefully we've got a couple minutes left. We may be able to jump in and answer some questions if we've got them.
Yeah, we've got a few minutes left. There were a couple sort of more general questions that I think would be really good to address. The first one was, so you guys are a Danish company. If I buy a DPA mic and for whatever reason I do need to send it in for service, I need to order replacement parts or anything like that, does that mean it's getting sent back to Europe, or how is that handled? And I know you guys have a robust presence in the US, so maybe we can kind of address that quickly.
Alan, go for it.
Yeah, totally. So yes, while a lot of the manufacturing is in Europe, we have pretty much a full facility here in the United States, located just north of Denver, Colorado. We've got a really decent sized service team that can turn things around probably within 24 to 48 hours, depending on the problem. There's only a few microphones that do have to go back to Denmark. One of them being the 5100 surround sound microphone. Just because there are some microphones that are a little bit beyond our capabilities, but the vast majority of what we're using here, we can repair and service here in the States. As for all of the parts, yes, we have quite a few parts, and as Paul had mentioned, like you could buy different cables or booms or headsets. All those parts can be purchased individually if needed, and all come through the U.S.
Great. Another question that I think is a particularly hot topic right now that we got is what sort of recommendations does DPA have as far as sanitizing microphones?
Alan, you should touch on that one too, man.
I mean, I'll tell you what I know, and Paul, you can correct me if I'm wrong. We recommend dipping our capsules in distilled water, giving it a good shake. Yes, like the water Paul's drinking, giving it a good shake and then letting it dry. As far as sanitizing with oh, look at you. As far as alcohol, like gel or something like that, that is not something that we recommend. But any of the microphones, even especially actually with the core miniatures, even our directional microphones can be dipped in distilled water, given a good shake, and then let dry, and they'll be good to go.
You bet. Yep. And that's actually common practice. You'll find that in many theatrical productions, the opportunity for these miniature lavs, whether, it doesn't matter which model type, these are going to be receiving a lot of abuse, through makeup and different costumes, blood, sweat, tears, everything, and the capability just to be able to rinse these off, like Alan said, in distilled water. Even if you don't have distilled water, like I was just drinking regular tap water, is going to be a lot better than allowing those different types of contaminants to show up on there. And that is the best way to do that.
And okay, if we want to talk about, sorry, I was going to say, I've got, that just popped up. The one thing that we haven't even touched on, which is the biggest news we've had this week, it speaks on robustness to the very core, is that all of the audio that any of you guys heard on the Mars rover Perseverance coming from Mars were brought to you by a DPA 4006 capsule that had been slightly modified for the rover according to NASA specs, and then processed through our MMA a digital audio device. It's a little interface that we have. So yes, all of that audio is 100% DPA.
Pretty fun stuff. Yes.
DPA officially an interplanetary corporation, I believe.
I think so. Yeah.
Touching really briefly back on the sanitation aspect, that's a question we get a ton as a rental company as well. So I can provide some additional information there too. As far as headsets, microphone handles, all the parts of the microphone that are not the capsule, we use just sanitizing wipes. We do not use the type of sanitizing wipes that you find at your local drugstore. We use some that are a little bit heavier duty. They don't leave behind a nasty residue. So if anybody has questions about that, you can definitely reach out to us. As far as microphone capsules, handheld microphones in particular, we do use a product called Microfoam. Again, reach out to us if you have any questions on that. With that, I don't believe we have any other questions pending right now. So Paul, Alan, thank you very much for joining us today. Thanks for spending your time with us and giving us some of your knowledge. I think we'll definitely have to schedule another one of these in the future, because I know there's a lot more that we can cover.
A lot to touch on. Thanks, Aaron. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Guys, it was so much fun.
Awesome. And of course, thank you to all of the attendees who joined us today. Thanks to my colleague, Brian Grahn, who's been helping us out behind the scenes. Before we go, I do want to invite everyone to our next webinar in the series, a little less than a month away. In the month of March, we're going to be hosting 2 webinars with Meyer Sound. The first is going to be Tuesday, March 16th at 3 p.m. Central Time. And we're going to be learning about SpaceMap Go, which is Meyer's brand new spatial sound, 3-dimensional audio, sound design, and mixing tool. So really excited to learn more about that. And keep an eye out on your email for more information on registering for that. Like I mentioned at the top, this webinar is being recorded. It will be available on YouTube in the next few days, so keep an eye out for that as well. Thanks again for joining us here today, everyone, and I hope to see you next time. Have a great day.